Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to How to Navigate an Evolving Landscape, Recruiting Strategies for 2024 and Beyond. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Raleigh Merrill with GTM Payroll and HR. In a moment, I'll introduce to you our presenters, but first, feel free to use the chat functionality to ask any questions you have during our presentation. We'll get to as many questions as we can by the end of the presentation. If we don't get to your question, well, we'll be sure to follow up with you by the next day. Also, you'll receive an email later today with a link to watch a recording of this webinar, as well as the PDF version of this presentation. Our presenters today are Martin Patrick and Kate Chamberlain. Martin brings extensive human resources experience to the GTM team as a strategic member of corporate senior management in for-profit, not-for-profit, union and non-union environments. As a consultant, he's worked on assignments at not-for-profit global research institutes. He has been working for an engineering R&D startup. He's also worked for a multi-state retail employer, a physician's practice. He also did manufacturing service provider for not-for-profit, for a national accreditation company, and various other successful businesses. Martin has a lot of experience. His project works includes developing compensation structures, human resource audits, employee and management training, employee handbooks, job descriptions, employee classifications, and employee investigations. We also have with us today Kate Chamberlain. Kate has experience in talent acquisition in various sectors: career coaching, employee relations and engagement, talent development, onboarding and offboarding, and candidate experience. She crafts effective recruitment strategies using advanced techniques to identify top talent, especially when it comes to niche roles and markets. Kate has more than a decade of experience in full cycle recruitment on both a national and global scale. Before joining GTM, she served most recently as head of talent at a healthcare tech startup, and before that, as a corporate recruitment and university relations lead in the industrial automation vertical. Prior to that, she was executive talent manager at a national recruiting agency, where she supported industries such as IT, healthcare, biotech, medical devices, manufacturing, accounting, and finance. And they've got a lot of experience, and they're here to share their expertise with you. So I'm going to turn it right over to Martin and Kate.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are glad to be able to present this and have discussion about recruitment trends in business today. And we're going to start with a short one-question poll that basically asks you, what are your recruiting challenges? So we're going to bring up the poll, and it's a one question to answer, and we will see where you're at. Okay. There have been some changes in the recruitment market. There's trends that have happened that you should be aware of in 2024. And the biggest one, as you probably know, is as companies have come out of COVID, things have changed in the labor market. The biggest one that many businesses face and has a lot of impact is the interest rates. As interest rates have increased, it's put pressure on employers in different ways. And one of the things that happened is that the market has slowed down a little bit. When initially out of COVID, there was a lot of recruitment by quite a few companies who had tried to bring people back to the workforce. And that slowed down significantly over the last year and a half. And now the market's changed a little bit. It's a little bit more in the employer's favor than the employee's favor. So that has meant that employers are a little more selective now about looking at candidates. And these trends are going to continue. That's what we're seeing in all the research and data that's out there. Go to the next slide. Okay. One of the biggest changes is, and Kate's going to join me on this, is that the change of focus for employers. where for many years, the focus was always on education and experience as the primary factors when you were looking at candidates. And that's changed. Now that most employers are looking on specific skills, hard and soft skills that candidates bring to the table, and really are focusing on those now when they're making decisions. And I'd like to introduce Kate now, and she's going to kind of follow up on this a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. So I mean, the way we're approaching hiring is really undergoing this transformation, as Martin mentioned. And I think by rethinking these traditional hiring practices and moving away from the emphasis on pedigree, so to speak, so where you went to school, what companies you worked for, what titles you held. Instead, we're focusing more on, skills-based hiring, which is adding value to your process. So knowing that the future workforce brings a diverse set of skills that go well beyond what's listed on a resume. So these skills are becoming more new currency in recruitment trends. And actually just saw the governor of Massachusetts is implementing this in statewide positions, at the state level, to focus more on that as opposed to degrees. So it's an uptick, and it's something to keep aware of, as we navigate further into 2024. And that brings me to our next topic, attracting our next generation. So in this evolving market, the rise of Gen Z is really reshaping the workforce, and it's bringing fresh perspectives, skills, and expectations along with it. So it's really crucial to understand and adapt to these preferences of the demographic to remain competitive, but also foster a diverse and innovative workplace. So Gen Z, otherwise known as Zoomers, so these are folks who were born between 1997 and 2012. So this is the first generation to grow up entirely in the digital age. So being mindful that this demographic is tech savvy, independent, competitive, and more open to discussing matters like mental health, tangible work-life balance, and social justices. So Gen Z will make up approximately 1/4 of the workforce by next year and continue this upward trajectory as they reach, legal working age and as more of the boomer generation retires. So with that in mind, employers should be cognizant of what matters most to this emerging generation in the workforce, including career growth opportunities, work flexibility, competitive total compensation packages, diverse prioritization of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives. So highlighting your company's culture and values within your branding and hiring process is a really effective way to channel Gen Z.
Okay. The other thing that you should be aware of is inflation has really certainly brought a new perspective for employers. There has been a rise in wages and salaries significantly in the last 2 years. And right now, based on a current LinkedIn report, over half of the employers out there plan to, have increases of salary in 2024. And the average increase is probably going to be around 4% based on a Willis Tower Watson consulting firm poll that they recently conducted. So besides also increasing wages, as Kate mentioned, employers are looking at what kind of attractive benefits can they offer now that maybe they never considered before. So that's important for employers to look at. The other important trend that's out there, and it's right now in at least 4 states, Illinois, Hawaii, Colorado, and New York especially, is pay transparency. So that's become a widespread phenomenon. It is a state law that actually went into effect last September in New York. And based on that law, 4 out of 5 workers are, when they're applying for a position, expect to know what the pay rate or the pay range is for the position when they're applying. And this has also meant that employers have to understand the law and that to comply with it. So when you're posting a position either internally or on a job board, you're supposed to be putting, as the employer, almost every employer has to do this, is the job description if you have one, and the pay range for the position. That is a requirement now. And employees or candidates are aware of this, and they're looking for that when they're looking for posted positions. Next slide, please.
Right. So an integral part of acquiring talent is simply by attracting talent. So how do you, as hiring managers, HR professionals, business leaders, how do we do that? Let's dig in. So highlight your employee value proposition as an effective way to showcase your company's unique culture, benefits, and growth opportunities to really captivate the attention of top-tier candidates. Veer away from that mindset that job descriptions should primarily focus on responsibilities and instead maybe describe the challenges of the role and the impact of the work. This can provide candidates with a realistic preview that ignites their curiosity, or conversely, could suss someone out who's not the right fit. So aligning a role with a meaningful objective can really be the driving force that compels top talent to choose your organization. Knowing that a role maybe has high visibility with senior leadership or participates in an exciting project really shows a candidate that this isn't just a paycheck, but an opportunity to add value to an organization. Explore the impact of talking about outcomes rather than tasks. So candidates often want to envision the difference that they'll make. So you can spark that into reality by crafting compelling narratives about the role in the company that'll resonate, inspire action. And this one I can't stress enough is make the application process easy. So candidate surveys are showing that nearly 80% of applicants drop off during the application process if it's too cumbersome or lengthy. That's pretty significant. So think about how that user experience can affect your employer brand, your candidate pool. And if you're not sure how your process is being perceived by applicants, have one of your teammates apply to one of your open jobs. How long does it take you? Was it an easy process? Would you apply again? Think about it. So as the job market continues to rapidly evolve, the dynamic between employers and candidates has really undergone a pretty significant shift. And it's critical for organizations to stay ahead of the curve by gaining insight into the expectations, aspirations, and priorities of the modern workforce. So from the influence of emerging technologies to the evolving definition of work-life balance, remaining mindful of what candidates are seeking in their next role will help organizations attract and retain quality talent. Ensuring that your team has a candidate experience survey and capturing those data points really puts you in an advantage to discovering these expectations. So with the rise of LinkedIn influencers, workforce podcasts, and AI, more and more candidates are being encouraged to ask employers questions well beyond the scope of, hey, what's the day in the life look like? Or who does this role report to? Instead, candidates are being asked, or asking more rather, about work culture, transparency, the impact of employees, and so on. So I think as being part of a hiring team, being prepared to answer such questions with a thoughtful approach can really leave a lasting impression on a candidate. They're vetting you as much as you're vetting them. So is there anything that, if there's anything that you're unsure of on the spot, get back to them, but make sure it's in a timely manner. So, if days go by and a candidate's still in limbo, they're going to lose interest and move on. So when a candidate shows that they're invested in your company, let's show them the same respect on the employer side.
Okay. As this slide states, higher pay doesn't always mean getting the top talent. Many employers are limited on what they can provide in salary. They may be working under grants or certain conditions where they have a limited amount of, that is budgeted for salary. So what you need to look at are the other considerations that we've touched upon. You have to look at the benefits, the culture, the work site, time off, Can you look at creating a job where other factors are as important as pay? Because candidates are looking for that. Sometimes many candidates state that pay is important. There's no doubt about that, but it's not the only consideration. These other factors that make a big difference whether they select you as their employer of choice or go somewhere else. The other important aspect of what an employer must be considering is understanding the labor laws and the conditions where they work and where the company is located. So one of these things, and we talked about the pay transparency, and in New York State, one of the things that employers must do is keep a record of applicants who have applied for positions. And to do that and make it a lot easier is the use of applicant tracking systems. So they're compliant with EOC regulations and other laws by keeping track of this, because you need to keep records of candidates who applied for you and what their status is. Another important part of recruiting is to kind of balance the playing field is have what's called structured interviews. There are still a lot of employers out there that kind of wing it during the interview process. That's not recommended. It's having structured questions and interviews where you're asking the same questions and scripted questions to every candidate that applies, so you can make a fair evaluation of the best candidate for the position. Again, we talked briefly about the job posting requirements and pay transparency laws. So I know most of you today are New York State employers, so you should be following this. That's amazing that to me, I still see when I look at postings, I don't see the essential job duties listed on the posting. I don't see the pay ranges, and that's a requirement in New York State. And you could be by some penalties if you aren't following the law. And if you're in other states or other locales, you have to be aware of the other fair hiring policies that are there. For example, ban the box is asking questions about criminal background history. Some states and locales prohibit it. The biggest thing, and this also includes New York State, is you can't ask salary history anywhere from the application to the hiring process. It should not be anywhere in the discussion. If a candidate brings it up of what their salary is, I would go to the next topic of discussion. I would, move on to another part of the interview process. And of course, equal pay and fair pay have been out there for a long time and are part of the process when you're hiring an individual. You should be aware as an employer of minimum wage laws and overtime. And part of minimum wage law also includes exempt or salary positions. You should know if you're in New York State, what is the minimum salary for a professional or administrative exempt employee, because it changes every year. It's tied to the minimum wage for non-exempt or hourly employees. And then most important, and where many employers fall down with the law, is understanding the difference between an employee and independent contractor classification. The independent contractor classification was recently updated on the federal level, and you should be carefully looking at anyone who's performing services for you and classifying them correctly. If you are classifying people who are clearly employees as independent contractors, you face certain ramifications from the Department of Labor that you definitely want to avoid.
All right. So hiring the right leaders for your company is not for the faint of heart. So in a moment, we'll dig into the arm of recruitment dedicated to senior leadership hiring and how to make that task more manageable. I'm going to give one more shot to our little poll here on recruitment services. So, oh, it looks like it may be working. So have you in your organization used an executive search service or outside recruiter in the past? Or are you conducting everything in-house? used both services, just trying to gauge, because I certainly, for anyone who hasn't, this will be new information for you. So we'll give you a few more seconds here. All right, a lot of repeat offenders. Nice. I like it. Using both outside recruiters, executive search service. Awesome. Glad to see it. Perfect. All right. So let's dig in. All right. So executive search at its core is a strategic recruitment process that's tailored for leadership positions. So it goes a little beyond the traditional hiring and delves a little deeper into identifying, attracting, vetting, and securing top-tier executives who can really drive organizational success. So as we step a little further into 2024, some of the current trends shaping executive search include the rise of digital recruitment tools and technologies for candidate identification, assessment, and engagement. So this includes AI, machine learning, and data analytics to really enhance the efficiency of the search process. The heightened emphasis on DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, with organizations seeking more diverse candidate slates, and search firms also implementing strategies to promote inclusivity in leadership hires as well. And thirdly, a boost in virtual hiring processes and onboarding. So for many companies, long gone are those days of, flying candidates across the globe for interviews. Companies are really embracing virtual options in their hiring process while also offering more work flexibility, with that remote first and team anywhere mindset. So why invest in an executive search service? Well, the value lies within the precision and expertise that these services bring. So executive search firms leverage extensive networks, market intelligence, nuanced understanding of industry verticals to match organizations with leaders who not only meet the skill requirements, but align seamlessly with the company's culture and vision. So choosing the right executive search partner is really paramount. There's a lot of factors to consider, including, the firm's industry specialization, reputation, their understanding of your company culture and needs, their search process, methodologies, how they communicate with you, cost and value proposition, post-placement support. So when you're evaluating your executive level hiring needs, be sure that you're fully comfortable with the partnership you're embarking on with your search firm, as they're going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you and finding you the right fit for your next leaders. So with the rollout of GTM's executive search service, we're going to mirror a lot of, what I just mentioned, with being an extension of your business, your team, and really being able to delve deep into building a relationship with you and getting a full understanding of what works for your team, what doesn't work. Maybe you have a previous leader that really exhibited what you're looking for in your next leader. By all means, we can have those deep conversations. We're local, we're right in, the Capital District here, and have that ability to come visit the space, check it out. So we're more carefully vetting people on the front end, so they have an understanding of what the workspace is like if you're on site, as opposed to kind of going in blindly and, then we have retention problems. So, we do a lot of moving parts behind the scenes. And one thing I'd love to introduce Martin to discuss further is our existing relationship with our HR consultants, who are often already established in your organizations, and how that sets our service apart from other firms. Martin?
Yes, thanks, Kate. We have a team of 15 consultants here, and many of them are working on site at client sites or know the clients well because they've worked with them a significant period of time. So they understand the cultures. They know what works at these client sites. They know what employees have, been successful working at different employers and ones that are not. So they lend a hand. They are providing an insight that you will normally not see at any other search service, because we know the clients well, and that makes a big difference. And we would be working closely with Kate and getting that insight when she's working on to fill an executive position.
Well, thank you, Martin and Kate. We look forward to hearing some of your responses to the questions upcoming. But before we get to the questions, a quick word about GTM. We've been in business for more than 30 years and offer a leading-edge human capital management solution in iSolved, as well as expert human resources consulting services from experienced HR professionals like Martin and Kate, and customizable insurance solutions and employee benefits plans. By combining payroll, HCM, HR outsourcing, insurance, and benefits through GTM, you'll reduce costs, increase efficiencies, and productivity. You'll accelerate key business decisions, boost employee performance and engagement, and best of all, you will be an HR hero to your organization. Our HCM solution integrates business functions into a single source that automates HR procedures from hiring through retiring to increase data accuracy, simplifying your operations, and escalating your productivity. The consulting side, well, our HR professionals understand how to develop HR strategies that align with your business goals, bringing value to your company by finding ways to lower costs and streamline processes. The GTM Insurance Agency offers business insurance and employee benefits that can be integrated with our HCM platform to streamline processes like open enrollment, saving time and eliminating manual tasks. We offer the great rates as well, with no administration fees from local carriers that you know and trust. And all of our clients have a dedicated account manager from GTM who gets to know you and your business, and you'll get to know them and enjoy working with them. You'll count on them. And now let's move on to the questions. We had a few questions that came in when people registered, so we'll start with those first. If you have a question, don't forget you can go to the chat functionality here and pose a question right now while we've got some time. Here goes a question. I'll throw it right out to either who wants to answer it. What are some of the out-of-the-box avenues to use for recruiting the hard-to-fill entry to mid-level positions?
Oh, good question. I can take this one. So, yes, so the market can be challenging, especially for very niche roles, where folks of that certain expertise level may not be, easy to pick off a tree. So, some tactics that I've used when I've been tasked with, having a difficult search is leaning on those niche job boards and networks. So, for example, I had to hire a mental health nurse practitioner in a very small market, rural market. So, leaning on area schools that had nursing programs, area hospitals, things like that. There are specificities, with certain job boards too. That is always helpful. Entry level positions, so utilizing tools like Handshake, Simplicity, that go to all the career centers at local institutions. That's a great resource as well. Text recruiting, chat bots on career pages, video content. And one last one that I think is really underutilized in organizations is your employee referral program. And if you don't have one, let's chat. It's important. I think it's really underutilized because good people tend to know good people. And I've seen it recently in recent months here at GTM, really great referrals have come through and have joined the team. And I think that really speaks for company culture as well. So definitely lean into that one. Good question. Thank you.
All right, here's another good question. And it says, I have a company with 3 employees, so I don't hit the threshold for pay transparency. The new pay transparency laws in New York State started in September. And if you have 3 or fewer employees, you don't have to comply with this. But the question is, should I post pay ranges in my job ads anyway?
I'll take this one. And I think the answer is yes. Again, what candidates are looking for is the ingredients that are in pay transparency. They want to understand what the pay range is, what the pay rate is. If you don't have to do this, it kind of puts it out front there at the beginning of the discussion, so that, you know, and in the past, people were always left the pay rate and to the end of the hiring process. It goes through the whole process, and then the person says, well, that's not the range I was interested in. So you went through the whole hiring process, and then you lose the candidate. So it puts it out front. I would recommend doing it. And also the other part of this, it is tied to the pay transparency, is have a current accurate job description. You really should have a job description that reflects what what they call the essential functions of the job are.
Okay, one more question. This one's a pretty big one for close to the end like this, but what specific skills and competencies do you anticipate will be in high demand for hiring this year in 2024?
Oh, great question. I can take this one. So I'm really seeing a lot in terms of uptick with more technical skills. So data analytics, cybersecurity, AI, working with a distributed workforce. So this is especially helpful with people leader positions. If you're working in a hybrid work environment or fully remote or a combination, making sure that you're having an equitable candidate or employee experience, really takes certain skills. So definitely a focus on that. All of those more technical, type of skills as well. That kind of brings us into, David, thank you for your question. He dropped in the chat regarding, please talk more about how you're using AI to improve the effectiveness of the search process. So it's a really good question. And it's something that, obviously brings some trepidation to folks like, oh my gosh, is this going to replace me in the job market? Really, it's used as a tool. So, I've been in recruitment for over a decade, and without my tools, I would be lost. So if candidates couldn't use my, calendar link and I'd have to do it manually, that's a lot of lost time. So to use that in the candidate search process, AI-powered systems can really help with resume screening, candidate sourcing. So, scouring online platforms, job boards, social media networks, can help with, if you have algorithms for candidate matching, like based on, the suitability to the position, you can find overall fit. Can do predictive analytics as well, analyzing historical data on successful and unsuccessful hires in your organization to identify any patterns you may have, can help with diversity initiatives, retention. So there's really a lot of that. My recommendation is finding that happy balance between artificial intelligence and human intelligence, so you can still retain that empathy factor that AI can't produce. So making sure that there is that human quality too, but leaning into these tools can really transform the efficiency of your process, especially when it comes to leadership, where, that's typically a lengthy process to begin with. So I hope that helps answer your question, David. Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for questions today. Our thanks to Martin and Kate for sharing their expertise. Very proud to have both of you on our team here at GTM. If you have any additional questions for them or want to dive in deeper, feel free to reach out to Martin or Kate directly. Their information is right there. You'll find that on the screen, and you can be sure to connect with them. Thanks for joining us today. Look for that email today with the link to the video from today's discussion and the PDF version of the presentation. Thank you all, and have a great rest of the day.